afternoon, and thanks for joining today's live webinar. My name is Aileen Riley, and I'm the Category Specialist for Safety here at MSA. Today, we're excited to have Kurt Abrett from MCR discussing flame-resistant applications and MCR's Summit Breeze technology utilized in their FR gear. Kurt has flame-resistant clothing sales and management experience spanning over 13 years. During this time, he has gained extensive expertise of both manufacturer and distributor experience with a strong understanding of the market as a whole. He currently serves as the FR specialist for the MCR team. Kurt, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Aileen. Appreciate that, and thank you all for attending today. Again, my name is Kurt, and I am the FR specialist with MCR. Today, I hope to be able to discuss a little bit with you guys FR clothing, the hazards associated, and where that product is needed to be plugged in. So hazards, industries, the clothing itself, and then address any questions that you all may have. So with that, we'll move forward. I wanted to start with hazards, and I think on the very front end, I want to make sure that as we move towards clothing, in each of these particular environments, there may be different types, different protection levels of FR involved. Obviously, we can address any questions with regard to that. Some of the answers may come offline based on the complexity of the requirements, but more than happy to help in any way. I'm sure many of you some of these will be blatantly obvious to you with regard to the actual hazards themselves as well. But I have a pretty significant background in the U.S. utility market, so electric arc flash is something that I've been around quite a bit over the years. And that is obviously a current that's passing through the air between ungrounded and grounded conductors. Insanely high temperatures involved with this, a very, very short event in and of itself, but the sheer temperature is deadly. So electricians and utility linemen are always advised to pay close attention to NFPA 70E updates and HRC levels. Combustible dust is another scenario where dust particles in the air at certain amounts and under the right conditions can cause flash fires, explosions. There are pulp and paper, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but food processing, a number of industries are subjected to the possibility of a combustible dust event. In addition, you've got, which is pretty, excuse me for just a second, I'll go back, flammable chemicals and liquids, which is pretty obvious. If your flash point is below 140 Fahrenheit and your vapor pressure doesn't exceed 40 pounds per square inch at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, that is basically defined as a flammable liquid. Flash fire, obviously, again, one of those obvious hazards. There are many different examples we could give where flash fire was heavily in play. Not too long ago, there was a movie, and there was an event out off the Gulf Coast, Deepwater Horizon. And if any of you guys saw the movie, you would see most of the people outfitted on that rig in red coveralls. Those were flame-resistant coveralls that they were in. They're all required to be in. I couldn't put a finger on how many lives that clothing may have saved in an environment like that, but obviously there were multiple flash fires ignited in a very short period of time on that rig, which created, well, deadly results. Molten metals, again, we're talking about significant possibility of ignition or combust. One of our fabric partners has a recommendation of weight with regard to fabric in a foundry or molten metal application. Open flame pretty much speaks for itself. Torches, burners, any kind of flame producing device. Hot work is involving flame, spark or heat production, and again, ties into cutting, welding, torch applied roofing, many different applications where this would come into play. So some of the industries, some of which you guys may be actually working in, but others, are not. They don't exactly come out and just make themselves blatantly obvious that that FR and FR clothing program would fall into to this type of work. But again, revolving around flash fires and explosions, chemical manufacturing is an obvious particular industry. Pulp and paper, not everybody's keen to the need for it there, but you do have a threat of combustible dust and flash fire in these environments. Plastics manufacturing, the synthetic resins that involve flammable gas and dust, fires and explosions, again, common hazard in this type of manufacturing. Welding speaks for itself. Again, that's another one of those industries where, you know, you will have different types of FR clothing that cater to the welding industry. Nonetheless, they're outfitted in FR. Again, electrical. You see in the slide there, a gentleman or a person up in the bucket truck or up in the bucket working on a line. You know, many years ago, just plain old cotton was acceptable for folks in this particular line of work. It morphed into some Nomex and shirts only, and then not too long ago, FR bottoms, work pants, or jeans were plugged in and mandated into that industry. I've spoken to many linemen over the years that talk about ARC events, and it was interesting because there were a number of folks that didn't feel like they needed to have the pants mandated. I'm working in a bucket, and I've never seen an ARC event actually come down into the bucket and burn anybody below the waist. So why do we have to do that? Well, there are actually there have been events where that's actually occurred. No two ARC flashes, ARC events are exactly the same, and they sort of do what they do, and I can't imagine explaining one being verbatim the same as another. So as a safety mechanism, even up in a bucket, there's requirements with regard to the workers being fully outfitted in FR clothing. And that is applicable to some other industries as well, where maybe the feeling is that you're only subjected to the potential source of danger above the waist, but in terms of the actual incident itself, it does not always work out that way. Oil and gas extraction, this was an industry where the regulations did change by standard timing. It wasn't too long ago where a lot of things changed with regard to the requirements for these folks. But yes, it's prevalent now. Pretty much everybody in this environment is in FR. Automotive plant, frankly, any kind of OEM environment, you're going to have electrical work and maintenance that takes place, and you've got electricians on site or contracted that need to be in FR clothing and the appropriate PPE requirement in that environment. Electrical contractors, again, required to be in FR gear. So you can see 22% of their workplace accidents are the result of electrical fires. Mining can be a true disaster with regard to fires in those mines. The amount of damage that can be done in that environment is over the top. So we've seen a lot of growth on the mining side with regard to the FR clothing implementation. Fertilizer plants, another example. Down in my neck of the woods in Texas, I don't remember exactly how many years ago, but I remember the event right outside of Waco where there was a fertilizer plant that exploded and killed multiple people. You've got the ammonium nitrate in place there, and the ignition in a fertilizer plant is horrible. There are many safety managers many of these plants now that are outfitted in full FR gear based on the potential devastation of the kind of accidents that can occur in that kind of environment. So In regard to refineries, it's the same principle. It's flash fire, and again, I hate to reference Texas again, but that's something that we see all too often down along the coast, flash fire environments, and so everyone takes the protection level, the FR clothing, very, very seriously in these environments. A railroad, again, extreme amount of high voltage electricity, so there is FR in play there. Food processing, again, we're talking about explosive dust, flammable liquids. It all ties in to the need for an FR system. Again, combustible on the pharmaceutical side. FR protection will guard against injury from fires or explosions in that environment. Of course, iron and steel mills, where you're looking at the number of combustible materials that can catch fire very quickly. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the clothing that we offer and give you a little bit of background. I know I spoke earlier about how things have sort of evolved over the years with regard to what's available. With Nomex being I'm going to date myself a little bit here. It's even before my time in the market, but there was a time where Nomex was pretty much the only choice, excuse me, out there. And so with that said, number one, you had folks that were being put in clothing that they didn't prefer to be in. Number two, there were a lot of complaints with regard to the abrasiveness, the itchiness. How is this going to protect me? It's so light. You can hold it up to the light and see through it. It shrinks, a number of things. So right out of the gate, flame-resistant clothing back in those days sort of had a little bit of a bad tone to it. But it's evolved since then, and back, we're talking over a decade ago, well over a decade ago, there were companies and fabric producers that wanted to be able to compete against that, wanted to be able to take something out to market that was more comfortable, that would provide the appropriate protection for the end users as well. There were, it really started off with a treated cotton, and Nomex was, at that time, Nomex could still, the field life of probably 3 years, cotton 1 year. Cotton cost wasn't that much less than that of the Nomex. There were various factors in play, so the field still wasn't totally level. The fabric manufacturers ended up adding about 12% nylon to their FR cotton. By the way, this stuff is treated, FR treated, and basically that was to help the field life of the garment, help it last a little longer with the small percentage of nylon in it. So you had what was called an 8812 competing against Nomex, and that's when everything really started to morph, and your wearers had options, and they were looking for more. They were looking for more comfort. They were looking to stay cooler, and they were looking to be in compliance. And so over the last 7, 8, 9 years, you've seen a lot of fabric and fiber combinations introduced to the market, a lot of flavors out there with regard to that very thing. Companies desiring to get as light as they possibly can while being compliant, excuse me, keeping the workers cool and comfortable. So that's sort of where we come in with our material. The Summit Breeze technology is something that we offer in work shirts and in coveralls. I'll touch on that in one other particular product that we would involve in a system as well as we go through it. But this is a proprietary inherent FR blend. Inherent means it's basically not treated. The fibers that are woven together here have FR properties. And this is only available to MCR safety. I do want to mention on this slide that it indicates it's certified formaldehyde-free. That is the case. We at MCR and many other companies out there do offer products in our line that might contain a trace of formaldehyde in it. It's below reportable levels, and I can count really maybe 3 or 4 times where I've actually seen an end user over the course of my career have an adverse skin irritation or allergic reaction to formaldehyde in any of those treated items. So it's not terribly prevalent, but it's worth noting that this particular fabric is formaldehyde free. With this, we've got a patented styling on this shirt and construction. It's a patented triple vented system. So it maximizes airflow, ensuring that all the workers stay cool and better protected. So on the slide, you'll see the top of it is basically a flap, vented flap across the back. And then you have 2 vents under each arm. The vents are made with FR mesh. So there's not anything that's taking away from the FR integrity of the garment here. It is all FR. I wanted to touch base with you guys on some burn test results. This is something that very recently came back from an independent testing facility in Spain regarding our 5.5 ounce inherent blend work shirt, and also with an FR gene that we have. So this is the test data that we have for the whole system. We've got FR genes as well. You can see the 2 applied together. Basically, and I won't go into the gory details of this, but you've got a 3-second time of exposure, and as the energy is amped up just a little bit with each of the test results, you'll see that we go from 0 body burn to 2.6% body burn to a maximum of 4.4%, where the only area shown on the mannequin, a particular pain area, is actually around the knee. So by industry standards, these are fantastic results. With our shirts and coveralls, we've actually seen up to a 50% reduction from industry standards in body burn percentage. So the safety piece of these garments is over the top, and we're very excited to talk about that. And again, as we move forward, I want to make sure everyone knows that if you need additional information with regard to any of this testing work that we do, anything specific to that, feel free to reach out, and we will answer any questions or provide any data that you may need. This slide is interesting too because you don't really take that into account when you think of an FR garment. However, data from the American Burn Institute proves that inhalation injury increases the mortality rate by 16 times. So with this particular design, clothing design, it directs the majority of the gas away from the face due to the ventilation system, which significantly minimizes the opportunity for an inhalation injury. We don't have a number, an applicable number to put this to in terms of percentage because we don't have enough case studies to really actually do that. But we have subjected the garments to these kinds of environments, and we do understand that the airflow within these garments is actually very enhanced from any sort of standard FR shirt that or garment someone may wear. The fabric is ripstop, which pretty much speaks for itself. It's very durable. It's hard to rip, to puncture. It is very, very comfortable. So you're getting enhanced field life with this fabric and additional comfort with it, which is become with all the different programs out or all the different products out there now. The comfort, field life, and compliance obviously are all huge. People are looking for that, and now they have more choices than they did years ago. So we introduced this to the market, and I can say specifically that we've got product and programs out there. We've conducted wear trials, which we're more than happy to work with anyone on. And literally for the first time, I think it's broke a record for me. We had a company that we were working with, an end user through a distributor, that wanted to wear trial this shirt, and they said it was going to be a 3 to 4 week wear trial. We sent the product to them. Their chosen folks wore the product, and in 3 days we had it approved and in the program. Very unusual to have something approved and go through the necessary channels that quickly based on the fact that they felt very strongly about the shirt, the comfort, the protection, the coolness, all those things. It's a nice story to tell because you just don't see that happen too terribly often. Again, you've got to touch it and feel it to truly understand. You know, we partner with MSC, and we'll be more than happy to work with you guys in any way, shape, or form with regard to samples, potential wear trials, those kinds of things, anything that we can do to help in the process. So with all that said, we have basically the protection. I personally believe that you can't put a price on a human life or soul. You know, the cost of some of these accidents out there, you really can't put a price on any of that. But what we've tried to do with this is take something to market that minimizes any opportunity possible to keep workers safe and to keep them comfortable. The one thing I want to relate to with regard to protection, comfort is part of the protection. Coolness is part of the protection. You know, suffice it to say that an arc event or a flash fire, these things are not. Thank God they're not happening with a whole lot of frequency. They happen more than they need to, but not a whole lot of frequency. But you also have a heat stress piece of it. Certain parts of our country, you know, really most of our country gets really hot at certain times of the year. And it was very important for us to make sure that they're not only protected and in compliance, but they're also as cool as they could possibly be in their working environment. The powerful performance is there. I talked a little bit about treated fabrics and cotton clothing, other inherents for that matter. The field life of this product far exceeds that of any treated garment at this time, and is up at the top of the list with regard to field life in comparison to other inherents. So with all that said, you know, our desire is to make sure that the company, the safety folks, the end users all have a peace of mind knowing that they've got what in our mind represents the total package with regard to these things, to the comfort, to the coolness, to the compliance. That we've done everything that we could do with the technology we have today to present a product to the market that will cover all these bases. So with that's the actual end of the program. But I wanted to reach out and let you all know that if you have any questions, please feel free to fire away. I'm more than happy to address anything that I can here.
So Kurt, thank you so much for all the great insights and the information in this presentation. So I do want to reiterate, like Kurt said, if you want to post questions in the Q&A, and there is also the option to send privately to the host. So it looks like we have a couple questions that were sent privately. So we'll start there. And again, if anyone wants to post a question in that Q&A. So the first question we have here is, I'm familiar with FRC. Is all FR created equally? And can you elaborate on differentiators?
Sure, thank you, Aileen. All FR is not created equally. We touched a little bit on that in this presentation, but there are different hazard risk categories out there. A lot of what's out there falls under hazard risk category 2, which is 8 cals and above. There are differences in fabric weight. There are differences in protection levels. There are differences in fibers. There are some differences in treatment. So the short answer to that is no. And the more extended answer is to sort of, to be able to do the research on it or use your resources to have folks answer, kind of match up what your requirements are in your program to what's being offered out there. So what we tried to do here is create pretty much a standalone product that covers all these bases. You'll find that some don't cover all those bases. Others may come a little closer, but yes, there are many factors that are in play that would not have all the FR fall under one umbrella. And we're again happy to answer or provide any resources. We actually at MCR offer different fabric technologies. We offer some of the treated as well, in addition to our inherent fabric here. So you look at it could even be a costing thing. It could be if I'm spending X amount of dollars a year on a cotton product that might last 12 months, but I'm spending X amount of dollars on an inherent fabric that's got this, and this that may last 2.5 or 3 years in the field. All those different things come into play based on all FR not being equal.
Awesome. Thank you, Kurt.
I hope that was clearer than mud.
No, I think that was great. Looks like the next question is, how do you wash and what's the care and maintenance?
Okay, so there are some do's and don'ts. I think the easiest thing is to focus on the don'ts. In my experience with FR, and this is me, I think you'll find recommendations on different websites that you would wash it separately from your other clothing, based on the fact that you could have potential contaminants on other or in other clothing around the house or wherever that could have an adverse effect. That's not prevalent at all, but as a rule of thumb, typically say, wash your FR clothing separately from everything else. Excuse me. Pretty heavy don't is just to avoid anything that's got chlorine bleach in it and or hydrogen peroxide. So there are a number of, there are a few, Tide with bleach, Clorox 2, Vivid, that are out there that you won't want to use when you're washing your FR clothing. There are direct purchase programs all over the country. As a matter of fact, in many of the markets, the utility market being probably the most direct purchase driven number of programs in the country, very large scale, where these are home laundered and have been for years and years, and there's a comfort to it. There's just a couple of don'ts with regard to it, and in a jean environment, it's good to turn them inside out when you wash them, just to kind of prevent potential streaking and that kind of thing. But those are some of the things that we do around the house anyway with everything else. Denim jeans typically don't dry clean. Some people do it, but you could lose some color that way. Outside of that, there's really not a whole lot that you point to with regard to garment care, other than staying away from certain bleach and or hydrogen peroxide. Your Arm & Hammers, your Tears, your Era, your Gains, your Purex, this stuff is all usable. I will mention too that I do this with everything anyway, is to wash in cold, soft water. Outside of that, that's pretty much answers it, I believe, unless there's another question to piggyback onto that.
There's another question, not necessarily about the washing, but how long do the flame-resistant properties stay in the garment?
Sure. So you'll find this. You'll find almost, not everyone, but almost everyone out there will say that at least on the direct purchase side, if you're in a rental program, you may hear more about number of industrial washes. But basically, most of the fabric manufacturers out there, and we definitely are in the group that guarantees the guarantees the FR properties for the physical life of the garment. So in our case, because we're an inherent fabric, the fibers have the FR properties. You're really never going to lose the FR properties in the Summit Breeze garment. But if you go back to a treated cotton, for instance, the way that that's approached is that, yes, the FR properties will last for the physical life of the garment. The garment usually breaks down physically prior to losing its properties. That's what you'll hear. So a cotton won't last necessarily as long in the field as many inherents do. And the process there is after so many washes or after so much wear and tear, that garment is going to be pulled out of service before it loses its FR properties. So pretty consistent that you'll hear folks tell you that the FR properties last for the physical life of the garment.
Sounds good. And we have one last question here. Do you have an example of a success story?
Of a success story? Sure, let's go with, well, yeah, I can, there are a number of success stories out there with regard to injury prevention, with regard to testimonies. I've been fortunate and unfortunate enough to be around folks that have been injured in either arc events or flash fires that have come out of those events okay, injured but okay, where without this protection they may not have been. You have scenarios where folks could be in just, it could be just a complete accident, where we literally had a person that was subjected to incident energy that didn't realize that that was the level they were in, and an event occurred, and that company had recently mandated that gate to gate the workers needed to be in the FR. His explanation to me was that if that mandate had not have been in place, he would not have been in FR protection when that accident occurred. He would have shed some of his clothing because of the environment that he was in to work in a cooler environment, and the incident could have been much, much worse. So that is an example. I believe this applies to me probably more than 99.9% of humanity. As long as human hands are involved in a process, there is always the possibility for imperfection. And so, mistakes could happen. Heaven forbid complacency occur in one of these environments. So that gate-to-gate program for this particular company arguably saved somebody's life. They did walk away with some injuries in the process based on what they were subjected to, but it could have been so much worse. So yeah, that's an example. To me, I consider that a success story. And then there's just the opportunity to go in and be able to show folks what the differentiators are with these types of systems. And how well, again, going back to, I don't think you can put a price on anyone's life or safety, for that matter, to be able to go in and see examples of how this has made a difference in keeping their workers safe, getting the feedback that folks, again, going back to heat stress and heat exhaustion, getting the feedback that folks are more comfortable than they've ever been in an FR system. To me, that means we've successfully designed a product that gives the workers, a little more of a peace of mind about what they're doing, and a lot better, in my mind, probably better attitude, better morale, better maybe productivity if they're more comfortable and they're not concerned about overheating in some of these crazy hot environments.
Absolutely, and I think that's an awesome success story. So anytime someone goes home safe at the end of the day, you know that everything was worth it, every measure put into place. So, Kurt,
right,
that was...
Thank you. I was just going to say, and they're happy about what they're in. That's huge, because for so long, and there still are many folks out there that just aren't comfortable with what they're wearing. We're doing everything that we can within the parameters and compliance levels to try to overcome that lack of comfort and breathability and that type of thing.
Yeah, and all the work that MCR is doing on this clothing, it matters and it's important. So I want to thank you, Kurt, for this wonderful presentation. I know I've learned a lot about FR applications, FR clothing, your Summit Breeze technology. And I do want to say, if anyone has more questions, feel free to ask in forums at BetterMRO. I want to thank you all for participating today. And please be sure to check mscdirect.com/BetterMRO for the latest trends in the safety industry. Thank you again, Kurt, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
And thanks for joining us. This does conclude our webcast. You may now disconnect. Have a great rest of your day.